We're seeing a lot of weird things. I just pulled credit on someone literally 2 days ago, 2 late payments on the mortgage report, pretty much dead until they make 12 months of on-time payments. We see a lot of really, pardon me, shitty credit, 400 scores, 500 scores. Like, these aren't people that we could rapid rescore and get to qualify in 2 or 3 days. And agents always want to ask me, what's the timeline for getting someone with a 400 credit score to qualify? And that's a really difficult, loaded question to ask. That's not anything that we can just like whip up a number on. Like, if they're kind of close, I can kind of guesstimate, but why don't you go into a little bit of detail on what your company does and how they can help?
Okay, let me just send him this meeting ID real fast because he's trying to log on and it's not working for him.
Okay.
The meeting ID
he
is
can call in too if he wants to call in. I can post the number in the chat.
Okay.
In the Zoom world of 2020, technology is not any of our strong suits. Well, it is a little bit, but not really. You know what I mean?
At this age for me, yeah. All right, so let's see here. I just sent him the right code. How do you call notes?
All right. I'm going to put in the chat for the phone number call-ins.
Perfect.
But we see that kind of stuff all the time. In addition, we also see some things that bleed onto credit reports that aren't correct, like trade lines that are marked non-applicable. It's like, well, you can't have a bill due to someone that's called non-applicable. That company literally doesn't exist.
Right.
Also, I've heard some rumors in some other credit repair seminars that I've attended over the years that if your last name has any 3 letters in the same semblance and any 3 numbers in the same semblance, you can literally get wrong information on your report.
Yeah, I think it's something close to 80% of all credit reports have some kind of error.
That's crazy.
Yeah, which is, I didn't know that. Like, whenever I started digging into mine years ago, there was a bunch of just random stuff with people that had close to my name or.
And you have a Kevin, you have a common name. Kevin Dennis is a common name. Like, if they being named Brian Smith or something.
Well, I even found there was errors where my brother was on there. Like, I was charged for certain things.
Your brother was on your credit report?
Right. Yeah. So he's trying to get sorry here.
That's okay. No worries. Yeah, it's fine. So, I mean, like, those are just a couple of things I want to talk about, like incorrect personal information, accounts that don't belong to you. Like, I had a deceased father show up on his son's credit report because they were junior and senior, and it was a mortgage that was not in his name. Duplicate accounts. We see that all the time on credit reports. That's a fun one to get cleaned up with an underwriter. Right. Delinquencies, derogatory marks. Like, I'll have clients that pay their bill 3 days late and will have like a year's worth of late payments because they didn't understand that it was processing after the due date and stuff. So that's all stuff that your company can help with.
Yeah, and sometimes when you get things that are deleted off as well, they'll come back. Right. So
I've never heard that before. So
yeah, if you do it yourself, a lot of times it'll come back. Like, whenever I first started doing it years ago, because that's how I originally started even talking about this, was through you, was because I was thinking about buying a house when we lived in Morgantown. But I had some things that I did myself where I would keep track of the paperwork on it, and after a while, it would just like come back after like 6 months. And I was like, oh, I got to dispute this again. I went through a lot of books and stuff that I like tried to find. But yeah, even if you have some progress as yourself, they can still come back for you, which really sucks.
Right. And I mean, for example, I had a Huntington mortgage, didn't report for a month. So it was showing up as a late, even though the client made the payment.
Right.
So like you literally have to keep such an eye on this stuff. I think the first step for a lot of people is to take an in-depth look at the credit. Like, you won't even see this stuff on Credit Karma. It doesn't appear until you get a real deal credit report. But I mean, it's just crazy. So let's go a little bit into your company. I know you do a lot of the marketing, not so much of the credit repair stuff itself. So what is the website if people want to get more information?
Sorry, I think my audio was off there.
That's okay.
Calling in right now as well instead of doing the video part.
Okay.
The website, I think that you have it in that event. I think that's what you just asked me. And then something. Sorry, I was talking to 2 people at once.
That's okay.
what was the other question? I'm sorry.
Credit Repair Solutions. So it's 800-creditrepair-solutions.com. And so what are some things you can do? Because these, I mean, typically the average buying cycle for a house is 18 months. So maybe someone doesn't qualify right now, but you want to keep them in your hopper for the next 18 months. So how would you, you know, how long does it typically take for someone to get credit where they need it to be with your company?
So we have a new dispute manager. And the ways that we do everything are all obviously legal. Obviously, everything's on the up and up and all that. So it's just a different way that most credit repair companies don't try it. It's a different approach. The details of it just could probably bore you, but 30 to 90 days really is when we try to do a lot of stuff. 30 to 90 days, you can get 50% at least of your things wiped off, all your negatives. I think that might be Steve there.
Hey, Steve,
Hello?
Can you hear us?
Hello?
Hey, Steve, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys loud and clear.
Awesome. We're so happy you're on the call. So sorry that you had so many technical difficulties this morning.
Oh, yes. Thanks for being patient with me. It's my first time using Ring Central, and no matter what I do, it wasn't working.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. So we're super excited to have you on the call. We have approximately 10 people on the call. I was telling Kevin we're going to post this after. So basically, I just want you to go into a little bit of detail on some of the things that you guys clean up and the timelines that it takes to do that for maybe someone that has a credit score in the low to mid 500s. How long do you think it would take to get them to mortgage qualifying standards, which is like a 600 score?
Yes, absolutely. And thanks for having me on here, and thanks for your guys' time, first of all. And so going straight in, anybody that has a below 700 credit score, they usually need repair because they may have negative items that's negatively affecting them. So anybody who's, on extremity, anything less than, a 550, majority of the credit reports, depending on what they have, it takes around 30 to 90 day dispute process for us, whereas most credit repair companies take anywhere from 6 months to a year, and they don't really finish the actual repair either. We do a full credit sweep, obviously in a legal way, with our team, and we get the job done in 30 to 90 days. It doesn't matter how many accounts they have, how many collections they have. We've been restoring credit for about a year with hundreds of clients, and we just have a huge jump in difference in credit scores, anywhere from 100 point up to 300 point increase in a 40 days. That's what we've seen with a lot of our clients. So we get the results done really fast within those time frames.
That's pretty significant. We were working with a company previously at my previous employer. That's actually how Kevin and I got on this subject and how he even found out about credit repair. I mean, they would hold my clients hostage for like a year to 18 months, charging $100 a month. I literally had to call the credit repair guy and like get in a verbal altercation with them to let my client out of the contract. So that's very beneficial.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, me personally, I did 18 months with them.
Did you?
Yeah,
we don't refer to them anymore.
It took a year and a half.
Yeah, we don't like that. That's not any good.
I actually met
right. That is no good.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all know, obviously, some quick tips that you realtors can write down for your clients to boost the scores if they're marginal, if they're borderline. I mean, obviously you want to keep those revolving balances below 30%, ideally below 10%. That's going to give this your quickest boost. You want 99 and 98% all on-time payments. A really great way to get instant good payment history is to maybe have a co-borrower that has made their abatements on time, add them as an authorized user, maybe mom, dad, grandpa, whoever.
Exactly.
You instantaneously will get that good credit history. But when it comes to collections, bankruptcies, medical collections, there is very little your mortgage person can do for you. And that's where I think that you guys would come in very, very handy and very, very helpful for maybe some of our more challenged clients. So
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So
that's where we can definitely help there. Go ahead.
So I see a lot of charge-offs too, especially for self-employed borrowers, investors. I'm sure that I know a couple of people on the call right now do work with investors, a lot of self-employed borrowers. what is your, like, people think that there are these things that are going to fall off their scores too after like 7 years, and that doesn't happen. Like, we see stuff from long before the 7-year period. How does that kind of work?
Right. So you're talking about like collections and different negative
That
items
are
on their report, right?
right, and sometimes these things are coming up from like 2005, and they're like, why is it still
Right.
reporting to my score? And it's like, I don't know
Exactly.
why. I'm not a credit expert. So Steve, maybe you can go into that.
Right. So it's weird how the bureaus just, they have an algorithm where they usually remove it, and they should remove it within those time frame. Like collections usually last anywhere from, depending on the state, at 3 to 5 years, and obviously bankruptcies anywhere from usually 10 years and over. It should be removed, but there are many cases, 50% of the time, with my clients where it's not being removed. Like I had a client yesterday who has been in bankruptcy for over 13 years, and it's supposed to be off of the report. But I told them my best advice for every single one of those people is to just check with the credit bureaus, the TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, and just give them a call to the customer service line. I will give you guys a special number to make sure you talk to a physical representative, because right now, due to COVID, it's very hard to talk to a physical live representative. So I have certain numbers where you can reach a live agent pretty easily. And you just want to ask them, hey, like I have a bankruptcy and it's still on my report. It's been over 13 years. I don't know why it's here. Can you please update me on the information, or can you, update it on your system and have this removed? And if they were to help out, great. There's like a 50-50 chance, I guess, depending on the rep, how they feel in that day, or, they just won't allow it. And so if they weren't able to do anything for you on the customer service side for whatever reason, then we could just take care of it and just remove that. So that's the two kind of different ways that we could go about that.
Okay. And so, for example, like I had a Bank of America credit card, made my payments on time for some reason. This little kid inside of a call center in Morgantown decided to mark me as 30 days late. I was not 30 days late. They literally manhandled me and sent me to like 35 different representatives at this call center. There's like steam coming out of my ears at this point. I called the credit bureaus. They still haven't removed the 30-day late, even though it doesn't exist. This is something that you would be able to facilitate without me literally having like an aneurysm on a customer service rep.
Oh, absolutely. And if the client doesn't really want to go through the process of calling and et cetera, maybe they're really busy with their work throughout the day, like I completely understand where they're coming from, because this is tedious, and it does take, maybe a couple hours of trying to get on the phone with the representative and talking to them, waiting on the line for 20, 30 minutes, right? So if they don't want to do that and they want to just hand off the collections or any negative reports for me to remove, just off to me, it's actually probably the best, and we remove pretty much any accounts. I just can't say over the phone or on paper that every account will be guaranteed removal. But what I do promise my clients is that if we don't at least remove half of your accounts, half of your negative accounts that's reporting on your file, then we do give up to 50% money back, just so clients have more assurance and peace of mind that we get the job done. And out of all the clients that we've helped over the last year, we haven't refunded any clients just yet. So it's definitely been successful for a lot of our clients.
Okay, let's talk about this collections that have a pretty beefy balance. I don't know about y'all. I mean, I would say like 30% of my clients have amazing credit, lots of money, slam dunk, 20% down. The rest of them are usually missing one of those items. A lot of times it's the cash. So let's talk about this. So we have collections, maybe let's say they didn't pay a gas bill or a Verizon wireless bill for $2,000, and they're like, this thing's 5 years old, it's gonna fall off, I'm not gonna pay it. What do you suggest to do for collections? What do you guys do to help clients either get on a payment plan or get that off the report?
Right. So I do a custom quote for all my clients, because if I have just a flat fee, I mean, that could work. But if if a client, let's say, has a bankruptcy and they have, on average, what I see is like anywhere from 30 or anywhere from like 10 accounts to like up to 30 accounts, like tops. That's a really high account, but anything above 30 negative accounts,
We've
it's
seen
like
it.
a lot of work. Right. So it's like horrid, right? It's a lot of work going involved, and it's just not
Lots of
worth
red.
charging somebody 1,500 versus someone who has barely any accounts charging 1,500. Like, it's just, I don't feel like I'm in the best interest of serving client at that point. And we don't do $100 a month plan because we have such a fast, aggressive process of 30 to 90 days. And I say up to 90 days if they have like a terrible report, but usually in up to 60 days we get majority of the account wiped out, if not everything restored. So
Okay, so what's your
that's why we
sweet
take a
spot?
higher
Like, what
premium.
do you not want to touch? Anything with more than 10 derogatives, or you will work with those people? It's just a freaking nightmare, or like, you tell us.
Oh, no. I work with all clients. That's
Okay.
what I'm in the business
I know.
for. So it's not like I'm going to take clients, oh, this looks awful, I'm not going to take him as a client. No, of course I'll take him as a client, just more work. And it might take up to 90 days or literally up to up to 4 months. That's like a report that's on the extreme side, and I'll let you guys know. But I do give custom quotes. I have to give custom quotes for everybody so that I can adjust to a fair amount that every client deserves for the repair process. So it's a little bit more higher ticket. It's not $100 a month.
So let's talk about this. So we were kind of, talking about the more damage reports, but for, people with collections, maybe not so much money, there's a way for you guys to get in with the creditor and maybe circumnavigate that payment for the client.
Oh, yes. I
that's what I was wondering.
I completely wipe out the collection in itself. And so they would not, technically don't have to owe that debt anymore. Because the collections doesn't really belong to them. It belongs to the creditor. So the creditor sold that debt to the collection agency for a fraction of the cost, and collection agency is trying to get all the money that they owe, from the consumer. But
That's
technically, legally, that's a loophole. It's not the clients anymore. That is completely just gone. So that's why we remove it with the report in a very aggressive process, so that the collection agencies can't take legal actions against the client and try to get the money from the client at all. So that's how we remove
There's a lot of predatory things that collection agencies do too that aren't necessarily by the book.
Of course, right.
So let's talk about this too. We're going to keep it super brief, and I'll let you guys ask any questions that you may have, or, we'll send out the information to everybody. I think we've covered some good information, quick tips to keep the credit score good, how you guys can help even with collections. One of the things that we see a lot with millennial first-time home buyers, Gen Z, student loans and going into default, or right now everyone that has a federal student loan, you're in deferment until September. So those types of things, maybe deferment doesn't necessarily hurt your credit score, but if you have delinquencies and you can't make those on-time payments, it's certainly not helping you. So what can you do with like the federal student loan debt? Because that's something that's really hard for my clients to call in and talk to someone at the Department of Education. They are not the easiest people to talk to by any means. I mean, you'll be on hold
absolutely.
for days.
Right. So anybody with any type of debt, whether it's student loans, medical bills, credit card, statements, any type of personal loan, any debt that's in collections, usually takes 4 months to be in collections. But around 5 to 6 months, it actually goes through on your credit report. So once any debt is in collection, doesn't matter if it's student loans or not, we can wipe it out. That's not a problem. It just takes up to a 90-day process. But if they're still having that active debt, and let's say they had a 2 months late payment, maybe 3 months, or if it's over 4 months, then it's about to be in collection and it's in the process. But if they only have anything under a 3-month late payment, I'd highly encourage them to just either remove the late payment off their report, or we have to go through the process of removing that entire account So it just really depends. Obviously, we can really remove legally inactive accounts. That would be kind
Frown
of a
upon.
fraud.
Yeah.
Right, that would be fraudulent. So it's not like we can just wipe out the entire debt. Like they would have to be late enough months to be sent out to collections for us to do give any help to the client. So unless it's in collections, there's really nothing we can do. But I'm not going to tell clients over the phone. It's like I would purposely, if I were you, like be late
Right.
on the collection or on the debt, right? I can't legally say that, right? So it just depends on what they're in, the situation they're in.
I had a really harebrained student loans situation. Then we'll get into some Q&A, maybe with some other weird credit situations that people have had.
Right.
So I had a client, the student loan wasn't even reporting on the credit anymore because it was so old, but they were literally about to start garnishing his wages for an old student loan. So like, what do we do in that kind of situation? Because obviously it's going to show on the pay, but it might not be on the credit, or it's going to be newly added to the credit after being inactive for 7 years.
That's interesting. So you're saying that the student loan isn't on the credit report, but the client owes the debt, is what you're saying?
So what they were going to do, so basically a debt collector had purchased the debt from the United States Department of Education, but there's like a weird thing with federal debt and collections. I'm not an expert, that's why I'm asking the question, but they got a letter in the mail saying they were going to start garnishing his wages because of this missed student loan payment. You know, they haven't been making it.
Okay, but okay.
So the creditor had sold the debt.
Right. The creditor has sold the debt to another agency, and then they're trying to collect the debt again, right? So, gotcha. So in that case, it will show up eventually. It may just take some time, maybe 60 days or maybe a little bit more, for another, creditor to post that within the bureau's report. So the client will see that on their end. It may not be just right now, but down the road there will be a time. Usually our dispute methods, those things don't pop up. We basically nicely threaten the bureaus and the collection agencies that, hey, this is not authorized to the client, and due to these factors that many of these factors that the collection agency and the bureaus don't follow by the books, we can take advantage of you not following the rules. And so if you don't help out, right, if you don't comply with us or give us reasonings, or admit that you're making many different mistakes and many different issues, not following the books, then we would just, basically pay the debt. That's not a problem. But if you, if you're willing to comply with us and just work things out, then we would, they would remove the debt on their end because they don't want to admit the fact that they're doing something wrong. So it's that's kind of simplifying what's being sent on the letters. So there's a lot of things, obviously, you guys know that collection agencies are not following by the books, even though they made the law. So it's a pretty crazy. That's our loophole and ways to where we could, remove things off the report and the debt in the best interest for the client.
And then does anyone have any questions for Steve or Kevin? Maybe weird situations you've seen, or maybe a personal situation that's not you, or anything like that. You want to know cost, fees, how to get your clients signed up. Quiet crowd today. Okay, Steve, can you hit us with 3 top credit things that you can do real quick for a client? And then if they can't do those 3 things and it's still a mess, we'll make sure everyone gets your information.
Right. So I think the best way is, when you said at the beginning, is obviously getting an authorized user. Even though, all these lenders and banks are not dumb, they know it's an authorized user, but it just does help boost your credit score immensely depending on the age of the account. So I personally don't sell trade lines. It's actually, you're not supposed to sell trade lines, but if you have a family friend like grandparents, anyone in your family, even your coworkers who happen to have a good credit score, and that specific card that you're assigned as an authorized user, try to get that card's age as high as possible and the limit as high as possible too. So let's say a client with someone on an average report, they have like 1.5 years, and all their credit lines mix of 2-3 credit cards is maximum is $3,000. That's a very low thin profile. So let's say the client has, a 650 or 630 credit score, and they have 30% utilization, then it's probably under 600, and they get an authorized user from somebody with a 5-year credit history and a $10,000 credit limit. Now all that positive, report's going to be balancing on the client's account. That will raise it probably, a 700, score boost. So that could be really beneficial. What a lot of people don't know is that they just think, oh, authorized user, oh, you have good credit. They just kind of go with the assumption that this person obviously has a good score, but maybe that card's age is way less than what the client already has. Like, let's say that card is only 6 months old, and you have a 1.5-year-old credit history on majority of your cards, then that's doing a disservice to your account, and that'll lower your score when they add you as an authorized user. So make sure you look at the age, make sure it's a lot higher, because they're putting the average of all the credit card ages, right? And make sure the credit limits are a lot higher. Make sure they're paying everything on time. They don't have any delinquencies or late payments on their specific card. And that's the best way to effectively add an AU and as an authorized user. So that's number one. And then second thing is, if the client has late payments and they don't have a lot of negatives or delinquencies, they're very close to reaching that. I don't know what you guys really look for getting lending, but let's just say 650, and they're at 630 or 640, and maybe they just had a couple late payments that they missed on the past, or just one late payment. That's kind of easy to fix. You want to call the creditor and ask them for forgiveness, and just talk to a rep. It may take a few tries over the phone, and just say, hey, I actually just forgot to pay this on time, or I've been having hard times during this period of time where I wasn't making an income, or COVID stroke, and so I was unemployed, I couldn't make the payment. Can you please forgive this payment? I've been on time every single other times, just not this time. And so if you can just politely just forgive the payment, and I will make sure I'm always paying on time. And my payment history other than these dates are good. So if you could forgive that would be great. So usually 50% of the time they will forgive the payment, and forgive the late payment, and just call it a day, and it'll report positively onto your next month's balance. And if it doesn't, if they're not willing to work with you after a few tries, then I can take care of it on my end. And then the other easiest thing besides trade lines is obviously lowering your utilization as much as possible. I highly recommend below 10%. So that's pretty much all that we can do in a short period of time.
Guys, thank you so much for hopping on the call. I mean, I've definitely learned some things, especially about the late payments, just because, I've seen that happen to people that have made their on-time payments. I think that that's great. Obviously, everyone's customer service lines are kind of blowing up right now because of CARES and
Right.
the trade line forgiveness things that are happening right now. So be patient.
Right.
If you're like, I don't want to deal with this, which is what I do 90% of the time, I'm like, whatever. Obviously, reach out to Kevin, reach out to Steve. We'll make sure all their contact information is sent out in the Facebook group. And then you could also reach out to me personally. I'm more than happy to send you their information. And then if you want to share this with any clients, we're going to have it uploaded on my YouTube channel at some point, either today or tomorrow. So guys, thank you all so much for hopping on the call. Does anyone have any questions? Last chance. Nope, I don't think so. All right, everyone, have a good day. Thank you.
Hey, thanks a lot.
All right, thank you so much. Take care.
Bye-bye.